Hi, and welcome to another video by Jimthecarguy. Today we're going to be working on a 2003. It's a Honda Accord. We're going to be replacing the front brakes as well as the front rotors. We're also going to be changing the rear brakes, so watch for a link on my video to get to the rear, see how the rear brakes are done also. I'll give you an example of some tools you're going to need. Some basic hand tools, nothing crazy. Ratchet, a couple of sockets, screwdriver, and that's really about it. So, all right, let's get up there. I'm going to show you how to do it step by step, and we're going to get through this. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. If you like what I'm doing, give me a big thumbs up. All right, let's get up there and see what we're going to do. Okay, this gives you an idea of what kind of tools you're going to need. You're basically going to need a small pry bar, a screwdriver of some sort, and if you don't have a pry bar, a Phillips head screwdriver, some sockets, and a hammer. First thing I do before I do anything is I go in the back of the rotor over here with the pry bar and just pry on the caliper and just keep on holding light pressure on it until the caliper pushes all the way back in as far as it's supposed to and the piston is recessed all the way into the bore. And the reason we're doing that is two reasons. One, it makes it later on easier to put the brake pads on, and two, we're checking these slide pins right here to make sure that they slide the way they're supposed to. And as you can see, both slide pins slide just the way they're supposed to, so we know that the caliper mounting bracket is in good condition. We are going to lubricate these pins here, and we may even change these rubber boots depending on their condition. But this is what I want to show you about taking these off. So let me just show you the way I get them off. Before you even try to get in here with the screwdriver, because you're going to get in here, you're going to try to get on this thing, you're going to try to turn them, you're going to strip them, and you're going to have a problem. What I always do, and I might add, you're going to need either a brass strip or something made of steel. You put it on top of the bolt, just like this here, and you hit it really firmly. Don't be afraid of hitting it, you're not going to break it. And then they come right out. You try to do that without banging on this, and you're going to wind up stripping it out, and you're going to wind up having to drill these out. Okay? I don't think back in the early days, maybe I stripped one of these out, but ever since I used the drift and the hammer, it always comes out. So don't be afraid of hitting it. You're not going to damage anything. All right? Next thing we're going to do, we're going to start to take the job apart. And the way we do that is we remove this bolt here. It's probably a 12 or 13 millimeter. We're going to take this one out here, 12 or 13 millimeter. And then we're going to come down in the back of the caliper. Over here we're going to remove this bolt. And we have one more down underneath here. We're going to take this out too. That's probably a 17 or 18 millimeter. And then we're going to relocate this to the side and we're going to get that rotor off. Alright, so let me get started on it. Alright, first thing we're going to do is we take these out. They are 12 millimeter, just so you know. And you know counterclockwise is always off. Take the bolts out. And then we're going to relocate the caliper off to the side. Don't lose those bolts, you're going to need to put them back in. Whenever you have a caliper, you never want to let it hang by itself. Always take a piece of wire, a hanger or something, and just relocate it up and out of the way so it doesn't interfere with anything. The reason that we're changing these brakes is because they pulsate like crazy when you're applying the brakes. So we're going to be changing the pads. We're going to also be changing the hardware kit on here too. All right. And next thing we're going to do is we're going to remove that mounting bracket. And we're going to take out those two bolts that I previously showed to you. They are 17 millimeter, just so you know. Now obviously if you have air, you can use air. But if you don't, you're going to do it like this. Now, we did check these slide pins before to see what kind of condition they're in, and they actually are fine. They do slide the way they're supposed to, but I think we are going to change these rubber seals here because they look pretty bad. All right, next thing we'll do is let's take the rotor off the car. The rotor is going to be replaced. Doesn't matter. You could bang it with a hammer to knock it off, and if that doesn't work, you don't want to beat the heck out of it. You can screw a bolt into the face of the rotor like that. There's a small threaded hole in there. You just put the bolt into it and you just tighten it up. And then the rotor comes right off. Or if you feel like it, you can beat the daylights out of it. It doesn't matter because you're going to be changing it in this case anyway. But if you had to reuse them, this is the way you want to do it because you won't do any further damage to it. All right, we take the rotor off. Quite a bit of rust there. All right, so what we are going to do before we do anything here is we're going to clean this face up right over here. We're going to clean this up so that there's no rust on here because with the new rotor going on there, it'll cause the brakes to pulsate again. So I'm going to clean that up. Different ways you can do it. The way I do it here at the shop is I use a disc like this to clean everything up really well. If you don't have that, you can use a razor blade. A little bit more difficult using a razor blade to get in here and clean it up. But if you had to, you could do it. Or sandpaper. Alright, so let me grab the new stuff and let's get back to work on it. Okay, now remember we talked about we're going to be replacing the hardware on here. The hardware really just pops right off. You can do it with your hands. You can get in here with a screwdriver and you just pop off the knuckle just like that. I'm sorry, not the knuckle, the mounting bracket. Alright, if there's a significant amount of rust in here, you want to clean it off. In this case, it's fine. There's nothing wrong in there, so that looks good. You take your new clip that you're going to be mounting on put them onto the bracket like this, and you push it over the top like that, and it snaps right in. Same thing on the bottom here. You just put it over the top like that. You push it down, and you'll feel it snap right in. Now, remember we talked about we're going to change these boots on here too. Very simple to do. You just take these, pull this out. Like that, pull this out like that, and then these rubber boots, they just come right out like this. Alright, now the replacement boots, you just take the boot, you push it in here, like this. I'll try to do it so you can see. You push the boot in like that, make sure it's all the way in, which it is. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the, and I'm going to add, you're going to do one pin at one mounting pin at a time. What you're going to do is you're going to spray this and clean all of this grease that's on here off. And you want to wipe it down so it's nice and clean. If it's rusty or there's any kind of pitting or anything on it, you want to replace this. But in this case, these look very, very clean. Right? Next thing we're going to do is we're going to take that grease. This is the grease that's made specifically for brakes. It's brake caliper grease. Right? Lubricate it, and then you push it into the new boot, and you push it on until it snaps all the way up on the top here. Next thing we're going to do is the same thing on this one. Pull this one out. Take it out. Now, I want to just point this out to you. The reason I said to you, do one pin at a time. The reason I said to do one pin at a time is you see this one here has that seal on it. We're going to be replacing this seal too. Alright, so what we're going to do is you take a screwdriver or scribe, whatever you have. You go underneath the seal and you pull it off. And that's now trash. We're going to put a new one on. But first we're going to clean this off with that brake cleaning fluid and a rag, just to make sure that it's in nice condition, which as you can see it's in pristine condition. Take our seal, put this over the top, and just push it on like that, and make sure it goes in where it's supposed to be, just like this here. Alright, next thing we're going to do is we're going to take that seal off again. You just take it, you pull it, it comes right out. That's not trash. And we're going to put a new one in, same way we did the other one. You just push it in there, and you work it back and forth until it pushes into its seat where it's supposed to be. And that's it, all the way down. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to put a little bit of brake grease on here, and we don't have to put too much, just enough. And then you put it into its, and slide it back and forth, and make sure that that rubber seal snaps up just like that. Alright, next thing we're going to do is we're going to lubricate every place that the brake pad touches. We're going to lubricate like this. Every place the brake pad touches gets greased. And what I said, make sure that goes in all the way. That's it. Alright, next thing we're going to do is grab our rotor. This is our new rotor. Before you put the rotor on the car, you want to spray it with brake cleaner to get the grease off, because they actually put a oily substance on it so it doesn't rust while it's in the warehouse. So just spray it down, and then you can wipe it off. Same thing on the other side. Wipe it off. Now there's only one way you can go on. Line your screw hole up here, put the screw hole in the rotor, and you put it on like that. And then we're going to screw those screws that we previously took out back in there. I might add that hub bearing I did clean it up, just so you know. Alright, this goes on like that. Nice and tight. Nice and tight. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to reinstall our mounting bracket that we previously took off. You put it over the knuckle like this, and you catch the bolts top and bottom before you tighten it. Catch them both in there. Those are the 17 millimeters that we previously took out. Nice and tight. Same thing on the bottom. Nice and tight. And then check it again to make sure. Okay, now when you put your brake pads on, the brake pad that you previously took off, you're going to see there's a disc indicator on that pad. You want to make sure you put the pad on with the disc indicator in the correct location, because they do have a pad that is actually a mirror image of it. Instead of being here, it's actually on the other side down here. So make sure you use the correct pad. Alright, and then we know this was the inner pad because you can see where the piston was touching up against it. So we're going to put this back inside here where it belongs, and you push it in. We'll take our outer brake pad, same thing, put it in here, put it on there, push it in, and you see how everything slides nice and freely? That's because you lubricated everything and it slid very well. Alright, next thing we're going to do, by pushing that piston in before, it saves a little bit of time. We may have to push it in a little further, but it's in pretty far already, so we'll see if it fits. And it does not. Okay, so if it doesn't go on all the way, what you would do is you would grab a tool that they make to push the pistons back in, and what you would do is you just put your brake pad in there. Now there's different ways you can do it. You can use a tool that's made for it, or you can use a C-clamp too. A C-clamp will do the same thing. This goes in here like this, and you turn it, and it pushes the piston all the way back into the bore. We only had to go about another 1/8 of an inch. About an 1/8 of an inch will still not cause it to go on. Whether it's 2 inches or an 1/8 of an inch is still not going on. All right, after you push it in, take your brake pads out, take your caliper and put it on. Now I just want to point out, make sure you don't twist this hose here. I've seen a lot of cars come in with the hoses all twisted up like this, and that's not good. You're going to wind up ripping out the hose, not to mention you're going to leave your brakes applied. When you step on it, they're not going to release properly. Make sure when you put your caliper on that the hose is not twisted. All right? You push your slide pins in to accommodate the caliper, and then you grab your bolts. And you screw them in. You're just going to catch them both by hand right now. You're not going to tighten them all the way. Now, before I do this, I just want to point out one more thing to you. If by chance, I'm going to get you over here and I'm going to show you what I'm doing. If by chance you're trying to get this bolt into here and it doesn't line up, you can't get that bolt to line up here, that's because your slide pin is turned the wrong direction. You see that? See how it's there? It's the flat part is supposed to fit right into here. The flat part is this flat part is supposed to fit up into its groove there. So if you're trying to put this bolt in and it doesn't screw in, just rotate your slide pin like that, and you'll see the caliper pushes down just that little bit, and then the bolt goes right in. All right, just in case, right? Like this on the top one, the same thing. Let's tighten it up. Okay. Nice and tight. Same thing on the top one. Make sure it's tight. And that's it. You're all set. All right, now I just want to point out something else to you here. Take my gloves off and I'll show you. I know it's a little bit difficult to see here, but that's how it's supposed to be. Nice and flat right up against there where it's supposed to be here and here. All right, so let's recap exactly what we know already. We put our rotor on. We bolted the 2 bolts back in through here. We tightened them up. We cleaned up the hub bearing where it fits onto. We put our new hardware in here that the brake pads slide on. We changed these rubber seals that hold the moisture out so that it doesn't get in there and rust. And we have our bolts tight here, and we have our mounting bracket tight on this side here. Also, the 17mm bolts in the back. All right, that's it. We're all set. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to go around on the other side, and we're going to continue on the other side and get this job wrapped up. And don't forget, check out my other video. I'll put a link on here for the rear brake replacement also. All right, like always, thanks for watching. See you on the next one.